Welcome to this Food Innovation Talk presented by Danish Food Cluster in collaboration with Food Supply. My name is Hille Friis and I will be your host. Today we are going to humanize technology and to talk about how sensor technology can bring value to your food business. To bring us insights on the technological solutions, I have invited Christian Kondrup Maul, director at Bunker 43, to give us these insights. Bunker 43 makes tailor-made solutions for multiple sectors nationally and internationally. For those of you watching, please send us your questions and thoughts in the form to the right, and I will receive them here and bring them directly into the discussion live. But first, Christian, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to talking about a lot of technologies today. So hopefully we will have a good time discussing them. As you short mentioned, my name is Christian Maul. I'm the CEO and founder of Bunker 43, a company that makes different technologies, sensors and chip-wise to a different variety of sectors, including the food industry. So we'll be talking about some of these today. I think I'll perhaps make this short. Well, as I said, we're doing different technologies. We're a company based in Aalborg, northern part of Jutland, and some of the technologies are in combination with both software and hardware. That's one of the things that perhaps make us a bit special compared to other things. So yeah.
To begin with the basics, Christian, what is a sensor actually?
What is a sensor? Yeah, a sensor is different things. You can measure a lot of things in this world, and some of the things can be measured with sensor technologies. So that's different things like the temperature, humidity. You can measure distances. You can measure a certain amount of objects, things like that. And some of these things can be used in the food industry as well. So we're talking about temperatures, humidity, tracking, counting some of the objects. Some of these technologies can be used as well in combinations with the way you combine them. So you'll combine them either with a cable, Wi-Fi, mobile connections, or some of the new things that a lot of people are talking about these days, IoT, Internet of Things, which is technologies that will leave a sensor somewhere and then it'll have batteries for years and years, some of them to 16 years actually. So you'll use some of those. So the combination of the technology and the way it communicates is special in some cases.
And why is sensor technology relevant for the food industry?
Well, the food industries, including some of the other industries, do have some registry. We have the Fødevarestyrelsen, the Food and Drug Administration, that do have some rules, regulations about how things should be measured. So if you have meats, for instance, different kinds of meat, if you process fish, for instance, you'll have to make sure that the fish, the temperature in which you store it is below 2 degrees Celsius. So that way you'll have to document that. And sometimes you do that just with once in a while, right? And but otherwise you can make sensors registered all the time as well. So it could be an interesting thing like that. You'll have inspections and legal requirements that are connected with these things. So sensors are a way of measuring these things and making sure that you keep to regulations and are able to document that. You'll be able to track the food as well. With different technologies, I brought some of them today. We'll be discussing, I think. So some of them, chip technologies, RFID, for instance, combinations of those could be used to track different things. We've been using barcodes for some years now, and RFID is a kind of a new player, you can say, in this market, and you can use it for both tracking and measuring temperature. So you'll be able to place different types of RFID technologies on the food or next to the food, and you'll be able to both measure the temperature and track the food as well. So And it's of course dependent on what type of company you are, what kind of food you process, and so in terms of that, you'll have to perhaps have different sensors and technologies.
And I just received a question
Mm?
about where in the value chain can you use the sensors? Where is it valuable and relevant when you look at the food industry as a whole?
You can use it in well, throughout the value chain pretty much. You can both in the processing part where you process the food and you make sure that the temperatures, you'll make sure that the quality and the that the products are alike, for instance, and you'll be able to measure if you have I don't know, fish, for instance, and you'll be able to measure that fish looks alike, right? So you'll be able to sort some of them out if you're not quite sure that it's a perfect fish, so to speak.
So the ones out of the standard
Yeah,
orders you can
exactly. You'll be able to discard that already there early in the process. Later on in the process, you'll be able to measure all sorts of things as well at the consumer side as well. Actually, all the way out in the supermarkets and things like that. So you'll have it's a broad spectrum really of combination possibilities. Yeah. We were talking a bit about the tracking of it. You'll be able to track the unit if you somehow, for some reason, should find out that some of the there's been a problem with a certain amount of or a certain unit of food has been compromised somehow. You'll be able to track it down, of course, and make sure that the supermarket has are able to revoke them from there. So that's another thing that you should be able to do as well. Yes. And of course, there's also regulations from Fødevarestyrelsen of Food and Drug Administration here in Denmark that you have to have you'll have to be able to document that you have this that you secure your perimeters pretty much from pests, rodents, rats, and things like that as well. That's actually another part of it that is a good thing to be able to document. You'll be able to document the control of hygiene with the personnel. Some people will handle them, the meats and fruits, vegetables, and so on, and you'll be able to document that the personnel as well have the standards in that regards. Yeah.
So it sounds like that there are a lot of possibilities in these small sensors that you brought. Can you maybe give an outline? What is actually the possibility in the sensors?
The possibilities, well, they're endless.
They're endless.
They're pretty much endless. It's a combination of what kind of company are you and what do you want to measure, and what are the rules and regulations in that in regards to the products you make. So you'll be able to define those things. You should actually do that as a company yourself. Define the areas where you know that there should be measured things, and then from there you'll implement the if you need technologies in that sense, you'll be able to implement it there.
Okay.
Yeah. So perhaps we should sort of pick a bit about how we can implement some of the things. In logistics, of course, you'll be able to track different things. I brought some chips here today. You'll be able to do it in different ways. This is an RFID chip been using for different projects. Could be all sorts of things. You can use barcodes as well. Of course, we've been using them for a while. I do like RFID myself because you're able to measure a lot of things. Some of them will be able to measure a temperature actually by itself, and you'll be able to track them. So if you had a whole box of different goods and you label them with these, you'll be able to scan them all at once, right? So you'll be able to scan thousands of units at once within a second, instead of being able to handle one of them at a time. That's one of the possibilities with them. Of course, you can document that the different goods you handle yourself are of a certain quality and a certain appearance once they leave your company. That way you'll be able to documented, and there won't be any problems perhaps later on in the documentation process. Moving forward to some of the possibilities, documentation, tracking, and history of each product, something we talked about before, is very important, of course. If there's any problems with some of the foods you process, you should be able to track them down and perhaps revoke them or inform people about them. So that's one of the things that is very important in this industry, of course. Temperatures we've been talking about is one of the most important things as well. Measuring the temperature, making sure that there's no where that the temperature is either below or above a certain degree. You'll be able to measure that. Air circulation and air quality actually in some of the buildings are some of the things that a lot of companies are talking about, that the whole process facilities are up to standards. We've been working with companies as well in regards to the cleaning of the facilities, and that's a huge deal for them to be able to document that. I'll actually get back to that later on. Yeah, you'll be able to you'll be able to measure different things. You'll perhaps have people measuring, looking at things themselves in the process of processing the food, and they'll be able to have inputs themselves. For instance, via buttons, as I mentioned here. So that could be a button you could use yourself, and then they'll have that input in regards to that product they're working on right now. So you'll actually know in the system, okay, we have a problem with these things here, and you'll be able to send data that way into the system and measure that as well. So you'll have somehow a person as a sensor there, being able to see some of the things.
But can the sensors also be part of the daily workflow and bring value into the daily work at the food production, for instance?
Yes, it most certainly can. One of the things that you also, as a company, has to consider, of course, is the employees working at the food production company. Some of the things they do in the company is of course very important. The workflow, the way they do different things. You'll be able to both streamline the processes in the company, but also make sure that they handle the products correct. So that's another very important thing. Some of those skills that people gain from working with the different things, you'll be able to make sure that they do in the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's endless possibilities.
Well, that's yeah.
With these sensors, do you maybe have some specific examples from the industry who has implemented sensor technology?
Yes, we've been working with different companies. Usually, people come to us saying they have a problem with something, or they have a certain case that they want to emphasize on, and we was contacted by ISS Food Hygiene, part of the ISS organization, which of course is facility management, as we know them. ISS works with different companies that produce foods, and as we were talking about, they have to make sure that the cleaning of the different facilities and the rooms and so on is of high standards. That's why we, in collaboration with them, developed a system where you could document the process, making sure that that every part of the facilities is cleaned in the right way. So you'll be able to document it via an app, for instance, on your phone. You'll be able to see the statistics and see every part of every surface and things like that, actually, that they cleaned. So you'll be able to document in very small detail what part of the facilities are cleaned. And that's, of course, a very big deal for a lot of these companies. We've had histories or stories in the newspapers here in Denmark, for instance, where that was a problem. You didn't clean enough or well enough, and something was left, and you'll have bacteria and things like that. And that can have a huge impact on both, of course, the quality of the products, but also, of course, the resume of the company. It's not good to have a story like that in the newspaper. So being able to control that and being able to document that this facilities, these instruments we use here in the production of these foods are cleaned in the right way. So that's very important for both ISFS, of course, and their customers. Yes, another example, perhaps we've been working with a company that does storage, freezing storage facilities, and they, of course, for them, temperature is a big deal, and they want to make sure that every part of the storage facilities, which are huge buildings, that you control the temperatures and you know the humidity as well, and also actually the air quality. And for that, one of these sensors could be used. This is IoT units where you can just place it somewhere, has batteries for around 4 years, and you'll place them different strategic places in the storage facilities, and you'll be able to measure temperatures, of course, and get those data in. But also, we'll have a small actually wind direction sensor, you could say, because they are having problems with air coming in, hot air coming in from different parts of the building, and they didn't know where. So to figure out how the temperatures changed and why was a big deal for them, because they were losing a lot of cold air. Of course, it was a cold freezing facility, but also in terms of power, money, environment, and things like that. So knowing your facilities is a big deal for them. You'll be able to document it. You'll be able to see it. And one of the things, as we say in Bunker 43, is the humanizing technology, which means technology should make sense for the people using it. So you'll be able to see on maps, see your own facilities, and be able to see where are the different sensors placed, what do they measure, how are the wind changes actually inside the freezing facilities, and from that being able to see on the map how things change. So that's one of the things that we find very interesting working with that. And that's, as we were talking about earlier, the sensors do measure a lot of things, and the data that comes in is just data, so to speak, but it's once you combine them, that's really where the interesting things happens.
We actually just received a question from one of you about this data that you can collect or detect. Someone's asking can you detect condensation on a ceiling, for instance?
Yes.
With one of your sensors?
That's actually really interesting. I have this right here. This is a sensor. It is condensation, yes, but also actually this is actually a sensor from the building industry. But this sensor is able to detect moisture within actually buildings, but it would be able to to measure things like that as well. So this is meant for the building industry, and you'll be able to measure how the walls are, what the moisture, the humidity is near to that. So you'll actually be able to measure that. Yes, very much indeed. So that's one example actually. Interesting question. Yes.
And for these more building or storage facility purposes and uses and quality we've talked about within the food, like for other food safety matters, can sensors then also be used?
For all other food, were you thinking about in terms of?
In terms of possible contamination, or?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you'll be able to see different things in that part of the process. You'll be able to certain foods have certain tell signs, right? So you'll be able to see if the color of a fruit, or the color of a fish, or the shape, or you'll be able to see things like that with sensors. I don't brought one today, but you'll be able to see, and it's sort of camera technology that you'll be able to see. So these sensors would register what it looks like, and it'll have a perfect picture of a fruit or something, and it'll say, or you could decide yourself as a company that if it varies more than 1.7% from this perfect apple, you'll be able to get rid of it straight away before it reaches the supermarket. So that's one way of looking at it. We have sensors as well. Didn't bring one, but that measures temperature, but in a certain way. You'll measure them in terms of a thermal camera, so to speak. So you'll have a sensor that is placed over a certain type of food that'll run by, and you'll be able to see the temperatures, but the different temperatures of the whole product as such. So you'll have a I keep bringing fish back, but you'll be able to see a frozen fish come by, but you'll see that this part of the tail perhaps of the fish is colder than the other parts of the fish. So you'll be able to have a thermal picture of the actual food. So in terms of that, you'll be able to sort them from each other already there in that part of the production. Yeah.
Great.
I brought one more example actually from the real world, so to speak. As we were mentioning, talking about before, managing the pest control, managing that you don't have rats, for instance, near your production facilities is very important. So a company contacted us with a thing, and I'm gonna throw this right into the scene. I hope that's okay with you.
Yes, of course.
Don't be afraid. Well, I took it apart so we'll be able to see some of the insides. But this is a rat trap actually, and this rat trap, a company contacted us in regards to the food industry actually.
Yeah.
They were having problems with rats. How do we do that? Well, nowadays typically you'll have a trap with poison inside, but that poison is of course very poisonous. That's the whole idea of it.
Yes.
But you'll have a rat perhaps that eats some of the poison, and that rat will have 3-4 days to live actually after they eat that. And the rat can go all sorts of places, including inside a food production company, which is not good, of course. So this company came up with a idea for this, and we produced the piston and the electronics, and also actually the back end of the system. So what this does is a rat or mouse comes up one of these ways, and you'll be able to. It measures where the head is of the rodent, and it'll actually kill it. Yes, it's a sad story for the rat. I'm already sad about it. So I'm so sorry, Helle, but I hope you'll manage. But the rat dies. Yes, and it falls out. It's killed immediately. Humane compared to the other things where they run around for 4 days and having a real bad day. And so what this system does, it measures the head, it kills a rat, rats comes out. The system then puts up information. I'll put this away now. Puts up information online, and you'll be able to see those data. Where is this trap? What trap is it? Where is it at? Where is it placed? It has a GPS inbuilt, and it'll measure also, is it a rat or a mouse? It'll be able to say, I have this amount of power left, I have this amount of pressure left on the, and it'll be able to be out there for around 2 years on the power that's in there, and be able to kill around 80 to 100 rats, depending on the environment. So those data will come up, and then as I said before, the data is really the interesting part of it. You'll be able to from that say we have a rat problem here, but also the system will be able to say, next time you place a rat trap like this in December, place it near, I don't know, a water source or something like that. And that way we're actually using some of the data coming in from the trap. And that's where the interesting things really happens, because you learn from the data you get in, right? So from that sensor and the way it communicates, you'll be able to be better to handle the problem in the future, which is some of the things we see with other sensors as well inside the food production facilities. You'll be able to have the sensor and the data, and you'll be able to gather those data and form new ways of perhaps doing the processing of the food, being able to do different things. So collecting the data and analyzing that is really an important part of doing these things. Yeah. So that's another example. Yeah. It's an IoT device. I know we've been talking about a lot of IoT devices these days. IoT is getting kind of a buzzword along with other technologies, but I do think they've been around for some time, and they are really interesting. And as long as they're used the right way, you'll actually be able to measure a lot of things. You'll be able to gain new knowledge on different things that weren't possible before, because we didn't have the sensors. We didn't have the low power chips that we use nowadays, and that's one of the most important things of getting these units out there. So yes.
Great. Well, it all sounds like endless possibilities.
It is.
Great
it really
value
is. Yes.
that you can put into a food company. But if you are a food company and you're interested in this area, but you haven't implemented any of it, how do you get started? Where do you begin?
Yeah, that's because food companies are so different and in nature that you'll have to make an analysis yourself, and so a good idea would be having a meeting, of course, discussing some of the things that you do in the company, and what are the rules and regulations in those regards. What are perhaps you've been doing food processing for a while, and you'll know some of the difficulties, that being either production of the food, being the process of perhaps humans handling some of the processes. A lot of companies actually come to us with that, so you'll be able to measure some of those things as well, how humans interact with the machines, with the food, with the so you'll be able to measure that as well. So having a meeting and try to formulate some of the things, and then have one of the things and say, okay, this is a big problem for us, or this is important for us, this is something that we've been struggling with for a while, and then try to find out, is there any possibilities of sensors technologies being able to solve some of those problems, and would it be an idea for the company to invest time and money in a thing like that. So that's one of my advices to go that way. You'll put up typically a small amount of units, sensors out there, measure some of the things, get some data back, and then have some of those data analyzed, and from that discuss if it is a good ground to stand on, so to speak, from the data, if we get enough data out of it, if we able to fix some of the problems that we had, and then from there then have more sensors sent up, and then actually do the implementation of a real life product. Yeah.
Okay.
So so that's a way to do it. Yeah.
I just received a question about, do you see any direct cost savings with implementing sensor technology?
In some cases, yes, and in some, no. Where it'll make sense to set up some sensors, set up some technologies that'll be able to do some of the things. And yes, some places it does make sense. Some companies we've been working with, we just set up sensors, found out that it was just a way that perhaps people were doing things in this process, and then just changing that process could really just help out. Okay. But again, it was something that you just found out because of the sensors you had. So you can get a lot of data and a lot of knowledge from it, and you'll be able to, from that, see what would be the best way to go from. Yeah.
Great. And in the Danish Food Cluster, we are working with a European project called S3 Food, which can give you funding to explore this sensor technology and the value in this. It will be through test, implementation, and validation programs. And if you are interested in this, and also maybe a further collaboration with Christian from Bunker 43, you're very welcome to contact us at Danish Food Cluster. And if you have any more questions, please fill out the form, and we will make sure to send you the answer directly to your email. Now this is the time we have for today, so I want to thank you, Christian, for sharing your insights, and thank you all guys for watching. If you want to stay updated on news and activities from Danish Food Cluster, please sign up to our newsletter on our website. Once again, thank you all for watching, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for watching this food innovation talk presented by Danish Food Cluster. You can always find this episode on our website. Hope to see you soon and have a nice day.